Hi everyone, this is Stephanie at Hightower Stitching with today's video, which is number 232, and you've already got a sneak peek at it laying there on the floor. I'm going to show you the magazine that it came from, and it's called The Best Scrap Quilts, and it was published in 2014, and this is the quilt, the finished quilt. And what's neat about it, it only takes two parts. You have some 2.5-inch squares, and then you have a piece that's made with a template. And what I decided was that I was going to make it, and I've made it before. And when I was looking through my magazines, and I wanted to do some hand stitching. And this is a great, great one for hand stitching. And what I found is that as I started, my stitches were big because I haven't hand stitched a lot lately. And then as I got going, my stitches got smaller and neater and more even. And my seams got the same way. And pretty soon my pieces were just fitting just great. One thing I want to tell you right off the bat, though, is that there is a grain to the template that when you get ready to cut out your material, if you don't have enough material going with the grain, the template, and it's got an arrow on it, then you might want to stay away from that piece. And I think I actually, when I started, I can see one from right here that looks like I didn't follow my own rule. And that's usually because I really like a piece of material and I want to use it. So what I wanted to do is, I'm going to do this backwards. I wanted to show you what this involves. And then I was going to work back to doing the template and doing the stitching. So this first part is just to introduce you to the quilt as it goes. And what we're going to make are going to be blocks. And this is your basic block all the way through. And I show you this one because it's really done the way it works out the best. If you'll see, I have two darker colors on this side. And this side has got those creams. Now, if you're like me again, you might have to go buy some cream patterns to put out there, but some other colors will work too as you look at the quilt in a minute. And that's what we're going to make. We're going to make these, and it takes 20 big squares made out of 4 of these. So actually you're going to be making 80 of these, and you say, oh my gosh. Well, let me tell you, if you've ever hand quilted or hand stitched, you know how peaceful it is once you get started on a project. And I would cut some out, and then I'd put them together, and I'd cut some more, and I'd had a couple of things going at one time. But if you'll notice, every one of the shapes has got one main color in there. Then this one I used a wine color to put my colors together. So let me move this one and show you one that is not one of my favorites, I realized, because even though I felt like these two were light, this one is, of course, there were my two darks. This one was just a little bit too dark, and I actually made 3 too many, which is a shocker. And so I pulled that one out and put something in its place. So after thinking about that, if you look at this, I've started down here, and you can see here are my four pieces. And this is going to make a block, 4 together. And the way it's going to go is you're going to have, up here in this corner, you're going to have your lighter. And on the bottom row, you're going to have the lighter down here. All right, so now to finish your square, you're going to have the lighter on the right edge, and then on the right edge at the bottom. So that when you put it together, you start seeing these great combinations of colors. You see that great shape in there, and there's that color that you've repeated each time. And so I took after I put those together, then I pressed it, and then I would sew 4 together across. And you said, well, it's not going to be very big. No, it's more of a throw. But 80, if you get those 80 done, you're going to be so proud of yourself and do it. And then once you get that row done, then, and I've got 2 rows sitting there. Okay, so those were separate, and you can see the shapes. And then here, I'm sewing it together. And one thing that I did that made it easier when I was doing these rows, I tell you now so I don't forget, is that I would take, before I was putting them together, I would press that seam, for example, to the right, that seam to the right, that seam to the right. Well, then I'd take this row and I'd do the opposite, because I wanted those to lock together here when I was sewing them together. So on the back, I'd press that seam to the left, that seam to the left, that seam to the left, and I was really pleased with the way that turned out. So what I want to do now is I'm going to walk in and get ready for the template and talk about that and doing some stitching. Okay, here we go. First of all, you have 2.5-inch center block, and I just chose, you can make them all the same fabric, or like this, I had so much of one kind of wine, and then I needed to pull another one and another one and I actually cut out my 80, because I said, okay, there's my goal. I know that I got to go for 80, so I've got that. All right, then you're going to have to cut your other parts, and you're going to have 2 darks together. Let's see. Oh, well, here they are. And this one is probably, but see, there's again, and there's a dark and a subtle. All right, this one I called a light, and of course this one is a light right here, and I just really liked that. And I had cut out a bunch of these pieces, and I found out it was easier to sit down and put 2 lights and 2 darks or a dark medium together, and then I didn't have to worry about it. I had a little stack and pinned them together. All right, so that gives you the pieces that we're going to add to our square in a minute. All right, and what I want to show you, because you won't have a template, I said I'm going to make one, and then I'm going to actually use it to make my squares so that I know that it works. And here is one of them that I did, and I'll lay it on there, and I used a plastic, and I put a piece of fabric on there because I kept losing it. Even the red line through there is your grain line, all right? And just a quick review, the grain is where you don't get any stretch much, all right? That one I actually did wrong. Do you see how much stretch I've got? And when I had my material, I guess I wasn't paying any attention. Let's see if I did. Oh, isn't that funny? I picked that one up. Oh, that one's doing it too, all right? My goodness. Okay. And I swear, I really did. I felt of the material, because you can go with the salvage edge. And this one is not given that way. So it was good. All right. But then you won't have that stretching on the outside edge. But here's another sample where I've got them laid together, where I've got 2 darks and then 2 lights. And the more you are light on these 2, that makes these other shapes show up. All right, so what I did was I started with a piece of, I cut out, and it just cut out a piece of cardboard, but it could be a piece of paper. And I made it 2.5 by 6.5 inches long. All right. Then I found where the center was. And from that center point, well, I went out 3 inches on each side. And that made a 6 inch in the center. All right. And I had marked the half mark. So I came up here and I went out 1 inch and put a dot. I went over and I put a dot. And I put my grain line in there so that I'd always remember that when I was laying down my template. Then I took and came down 1/4 of an inch. Came down 1/4 of an inch, and I drew a line connecting those lines. And I did the same thing on the bottom. I did the top and the bottom first. And I put those 2 points down there. So I had the 2 A's and the 2 B's. Then it's just a matter of connecting those A to B and A to B. But you'll notice I didn't put any seam on it yet, allowance. So come out there with something that's 1/4 of an inch, or measure 1/4, and put your last line on there. All right, see, I just haven't cut this one off yet. And so this was the same one that I cut from that template, and you can see it fits. It gave me fits at first, and then when I finally got it, I said, oh my gosh, this is so simple. I can't believe what I did. But find that halfway mark between your 6 1/2, which would be 3 1/4 right here from this edge over, and then you're ready to go and make that. All right, and I hope that helps, because that is exactly what I used. All right. So now, for anybody who's very, very brave, now you don't have to make it as big as that is. You could just make something like for a table cover or something that you wanted, or a centerpiece, or a pillow. All right, so I'm going to take and I'm going to lay my 2 pieces together. Now mine are really dark because I wanted you to see them. And what I did with the template, if you'll notice, sorry about that, I went where they intersected, and I took a sharp nail and I hammered a hole in there. I started to use one of my punches. I've got a little 1/8 inch punch, but it was going to make it too big for me. I wanted to be more close to right on where this was going to be, and so I just nailed it and nailed it down in till and then I used a mechanical pencil to mark my dots as I go. All right, and so we're going to do like a dot to dot, and I'm going to start right over here, and I've got a knot in my thread, and we are going to start with the dot, and I'm going to go back one. Then I'm going to start, and you can see, and I can do a couple on this one because I've got a nice sharp needle, and I'm very used to using it now. And I want to go there, and then I want to start again. Now, I did this so many times. I am right up there with that. I know that I'm going to be close to 1/4 of an inch, and these are going to be the same. If you don't know that, then you can take a ruler or a 1/4 of an inch marker and go ahead and draw yourself a mechanical pencil line from dot to dot, so that you know that you're going to be close to right. And I'm going to go again, and I'm going to work it. I'm going to go up, and I'm going to go down. I'm going to go up, and just whatever's comfortable to you. You might do 2 stitches for a long time. You know, I never got really excited about doing a whole bunch of stitches at one time. Now I've worked myself over to the dot. Okay, and I'm going to back stitch twice. Here. And then I'm ready to cut it off. and put my knot in there. I'm using a double thread that likes to slide through the material, and it's not knotting up. If you start, when you say, oh, this thread is driving me crazy, change thread. And I just do a double because I didn't want to use a heavy thread to stitch with. All right, so on one end, put a light, and then you're going to go to the other end, cross to the other side, and you're going to put one of your darks in there. All right, and then I didn't make a dark dot in there, but I've got a really good idea where I'm going to start. We're going to repeat what we did. Okay, and I've got it this all the way across, did the same thing. I can look through, and even for doing it through the camera, I got him fairly decent size. But like I said, I got better and better. So now here comes the next part that's pulling it together. You did those opposite each other. It's not going to matter which one of the ones you've got left that you choose to do. And you're going to lay it across there and across there. Now this one I don't have my dots in, but I know how this works because I know that I have to be right where these two pieces come together. So I'm going to go down 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to start there. And I did put dots in my others, and then I got better and better, and I knew. And so sometimes this would be a partial seam because we're going to start there, and we're going to travel over to the other edge. Now I like to either set it on my leg or set it on the table, and it's amazing how much that helps you to get a nice stitch. You could hear it little pop as I was going. And I'm going to go all the way to the other side and stop before I catch the piece on the left. So I'm going to just put my hand on here, and I'm going to go across. That time I actually did 4. I'm not showing off. That was just luck. And this won't knot now. I'm very close to that. And I've got my 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to come in, and I don't really want to get the blue. And I'm going to backtrack. And you can think about turning the corner there and going down. But I didn't feel like I might get it to do what I wanted it to do. That's the nice thing about hand stitching. All right, so let's say that I want to put this side together. I'm going to take this and I'm going to turn it. I turned the corner, and I'm going to line these two pieces up. And I usually put a pin in there to hold it. I check the edge. It's pretty close. All right, and I turn it. And now, where I'm going to feel up there, and where I stopped, I'm going to start down 1/4 of an inch. And I'm going to do a back stitch. And then I'm going to start going 1/4 of an inch. And I want to go all the way down. And this one, you can just go all the way down to the end if you want to. And if you're hand stitching, you probably stop and go ahead and then go back. But you're going to go all the way down. All right, and I'm going to run out of thread, so I'm going to stop on that one. I would have gone down through there. All right, then you open it up, and you've got that one corner done. Then you can take and pick this one, set them together, and sometimes you'll have a little piece that's hanging over, and that's all right, because if you know that you're doing yours dot to dot, then you've got it. And you're going to start again. You're going to start up at this corner, and you're going to travel 1/4 of an inch down to the end. All right, and then when we fold it open, let's pretend like my seam is right there. It's a nice run through there. It's about three inches maybe, or something that you get. Then it'll open up, and you see it. All right, you've got one more side to do. So you go back to it, and this one I do have my 2 dots on. So I'm going to set this dot in that part, and that dot in that part, or close to that part. But I'm going to start, and I'm going to make sure that I don't catch the piece of material on the bottom. All right, so if your dots are off, that's why I was trying to get my dots as close as I could. Then just start where it's close to it and go all the way across, and then you're ready to come back and fold them to do this side and then to do that side, and you'll end up with what this one would look like that when you're finished. Okay, you're going to stitch your 2 outside ones first, a light one and a dark one, and then you're going to come back and you're going to do the other 2 sides right there, and you're going to get something that looks like this. There's was my light and dark, or my light and dark, whichever one I wanted to start with. Now pressing them, what I found, like this one I opened, so that's not a good example. Let me get one that I want to show. When I got ready to press, I pressed from the back, and the funny thing was that I could actually see the way that the seam wanted to go. In general, the seams across from each other, these 2 went out, and then I'd go, and this one would want to go that way, so I went that way, and that one wanted to go that way, but sometimes it didn't, and so I just pressed it the way that it would wanted to go. And then the good thing was, when I came over here, I did a really nice press up and down on here. Now, if you have followed, like this one does not stretch at all, so I don't have an issue there. This one's not stretching at all. See the difference? This one, oh, there it goes. And sometimes if the material, I didn't have it wide enough, I would choose it because I really needed a light. And then this one, there's tight again too. And that way when you get ready to put them together, like we were talking about, that this would be up in the top, then the next one would be at the bottom, and the next one would be the bottom, and the next one would be at the top, so your lights were on the outside. And that was the one that was not the good example. And here's one more shot for making your own template. Now, let's just say that you didn't cut the plastic quite right or something, and you can tell it's not right. Well, you can either do it again, or you can allow for that as you're working. But I'd probably go back and make myself another one so that I'd have it, and then be sure that you mark the grain. And just to finish up, here are the first 2 rows that I have sewn totally together, and you can see that cross figure in the middle, and you can see how dominant my maroon color is out there. I hope you enjoyed this. This is Stephanie at Hightower Stitching. If any notes that I have, I will write in the description. Please hit subscribe. Thank you.